protesters call for totalitarian government, re-election of Barack Obama. And then we have the links to all of that in a new article out today. Occupy Wall Street tax proposal is backed by Wall Street itself. And then we have all the links where the Democratic Party admits they basically set this up and are running it. They're calling it kind of the George Soros's Tea Party. And so I want to cover this with Webster, Griffin, Tarpley, and look at this. The establishment had to do this. They can't allow a populist movement of conservatives, liberals, libertarians, black, white, Hispanic, old, young, to say, hey, we don't want to pay tens of trillions of dollars to mega banks that created the Ponzi schemes, the derivatives. Instead of us getting together, they're going to have Roseanne Barr come out dressed like Mao Zedong and call for re-education camps and cutting people's heads off. And then that's going to get wide attention. They're going to have Michael Moore, who's made over $200 million, talk about end capitalism to scare conservatives into doing whatever Wall Street says. That'll make you go, well, I'm not with Mao Zedong. He killed probably 80 million people. I'll just go ahead and go over here with Wall Street. And then Wall Street is like, through the left, don't worry, we're going to raise taxes to pay for new banker bailouts with austerity. This is basically the equation, and it's more divide and conquer. And to break it down is Dr. Tarpley. Webster, you called this first, and now they admit they've done this. There are a lot of diverse groups out there demonstrating in the Fetters and others, but the mainstream corporate media is only giving attention to the people calling for Mao Zedong red terror.
Right. Well, this again is a mass strike period, right? We saw the mass strike in particular this year. We've seen it in Wisconsin, right? We had a general strike at the level of an entire American state, and we haven't seen that in a very, very long time. But the problem with mass strikes is they're a sociological phenomenon that demands leadership. It's basically a shapeless mass of people who protest, but they're not exactly sure what they want, and they don't know about strategy, and a lot of them are political novices. They don't really know what to do. The danger, of course, now is that we have these operatives from the general Soros orbit of foundations, the left wing of the Democratic Party, the Service Employees International Union, ACORN, and people like this.
They specialize in color revolutions worldwide. I mean, this is their specialty.
Right. So the Obama campaign itself was really a color revolution back in 07, 08. But now it's something different. Now it's an economically based upsurge. So they've got to have a new quality of misleadership and confusion in order to prevent this from getting its potential. Notice, though, these people are generally on the center-left side of the political spectrum. This has a big potential because the vast majority of the American people, 75–80% of America, is New Deal America. They want to have the New Deal reforms. They want the Great Society and New Frontier reforms. In other words, they want their Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and so forth. And they're against Wall Street. So I would give you the psychological profile of these demonstrators. They don't like Obama. That's a very important fact. Obviously, they don't like Wall Street. They don't like Michael Moore. People who were on the scene for that Michael Moore appearance said there was a collective groan that went up when people were told Michael Moore is here basically to promote himself.
Webster, let me stop you and back you up because I have Rob Jacobson in New York reporting. I have Luke Radowski in New York reporting and D.C. He's been both. I have our reporters here in Austin where they're having Occupy Wall Street events. I have reporters in San Antonio. And they report that it's actually anti-globalist, anti-New World Order, anti-central bank people who understand the finance oligarch movement. But when they're there, what you just said, the corporate dinosaur media is only giving voice to the Sorosian Obama people whose answer is austerity, calling that get the rich to pay that offshore. So how do we reach out to these not-so-useful idiots? They're putting useful idiots on the news, but really what you just said, the media is billing this as a new revolution and saying George Soros will save us basically through his fronts. But what you just said is what we've now found. The grassroots isn't actually buying it, but it doesn't matter. Perception's reality. The dinosaur media is saying that Soros is our leader.
There are a couple of problems with these groups now. It's good that they're anti-Wall Street, good that they're anti-Obama, good that they don't like Michael Moore and certain other of these fakers. Now, at the same time, I have to say, my information is They're not interested in Ron Paul. They're not interested in the Austrian School of Economics. So there's sort of a void. And one of the problems they have is they're into this General Assembly mentality. It's a kind of groupthink. It's a very strange thing. They say, we got to do everything by consensus of the group, by the group, and for the group. What it means then is that they spend hours deciding what to order for lunch. And so far, they have not been able to articulate any concrete program of their own, not even a single demand.
No, I've seen it. They'll put out 200 lines of general fluffiness, but never protest the Fed, as I've announced.
Right. In other words, what you need is a program of demands that will set them apart from the Democratic Party, a series of things where the Democratic Party can't follow, because otherwise these people are destined to become the dupes for the re-elect Obama campaign.
Okay, now really let's stop there. The reason I had you on today, and I want you to go into demands and your idea for the solutions to give that perspective, what you'd call a classical American system perspective, outside the box of liberal, conservative, socialist, fascist, all these terms. But briefly, you have done the research. Get into the constellation of Obama, Ford Foundation, Soros foundations that are attempting to lead opposition to them.
A friend of mine was at this demonstration in Wall Street the other day, and he asked one of the honchos, because they claim they have no leaders, but they do have leaders, right? And the media knows who to call. When Olbermann on the Al Gore network there wants to talk to a leader, he gets a honcho by the name of Kelly Heresy. So he knows who to call. They know who the people are that dominate this. They've just said, let's go march across the Brooklyn Bridge. Why march across the Brooklyn Bridge? What the hell does that have to do with anything? So they're being manipulated. Now, one of the top people in the program drafting committee told a friend of mine their demands are going to be more money for the Securities and Exchange Commission, and stop the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. And these are very timid reformist demands. These are demands coming really from congressional staff of the Democratic Party, say on the Senate Finance Committee.
Yeah, those are things that can be obfuscated. They're also calling basically for the re-election of Obama. We've confirmed that. They're also...
Wait a minute. At what level? Because, again, the information I have is that the average person there is not in love with Obama. That's one of the...
No. I'm telling you what the mainstream media chooses to amplify. So that's the reality out there with people of what this movement is. And I've seen the different interviews with the people. I've just read, as you said, these meetings where literally hundreds of points come out. Now, there are some groups separately that are organically under this banner going out and protesting Bank of America, robo-signing. I think that's a great thing.
That's better.
But mainly, the main drive is raise taxes on the rich. And they've got Warren Buffett in this film, The 1%, with Bill Gates' dad out promoting taxing the rich. But we all know that's just a cover for austerity.
Yeah, the problem with that is taxing the rich it's fine in theory, but the number of rich that you have there is relatively small. The money you're actually going to get from that, I think, is not going to be the solution.
It's $2 trillion if you took all domestic money, which wouldn't run the country for a year or pay off the $14 trillion. The real ultra elites pushing these movements and promoting domestic takeovers and higher taxes are all tax exempt offshore.
The thing that you want to do is to tax Wall Street turnover, not individuals, but sales. A sales tax for Wall Street. A 1% Wall Street sales tax. Their turnover is three quadrillion plus. You take 1% of that, although it'll go down, obviously, you get some real money for the federal treasury and also for the state treasury. Now, given the starting point for these young people, the most obvious thing for them is the question of the depression. We have a world economic depression. The only question is, who's going to pay for it? Should Wall Street pay for it because they created it? Or should the average working family, young kids, other people, old people, sick people, should they pay? Obviously, the answer is Wall Street should pay. If you're against Wall Street, it means you want to break the political and economic power of Wall Street. So leading edge is the student loan question. Because all of these kids, they all share one horrendous fact in their lives, that they're crushed under a burden of high-interest student loans. And this is something new, right? It used to be In the late New Deal, you had the National Defense Education Act. The Pell
No, it's
Grant
another
was worth
bubble. I mean,
something.
even state-funded schools that I pay for with my tax money, like UT, have got close to $100 billion in their fund, and they're always raising the prices. And I want to get to a list of demands and real things. But Webster, I've got you here tonight to go over the people trying to co-opt and control this, because you did some amazing research on it.
Okay, the obvious people are, on terms of the New York one, Occupy Wall Street, I mentioned them. SEIU Trade Union, Acorn, those honchos, plus adventurers, people that we don't know yet. I mean, look at this Kelly heresy. And
well, we got Van Jones.
Yeah, now, that's a little bit different. Now, the one here in Washington is starting on Thursday.
And you got Al Gore's network putting them on.
All right, but listen, the one in Washington now, this is now going to be Rebuild the Dream, or Rebuild the American Dream, and all dreams. This is Van Jones, a former czar from the Obama White House. He's the guy who was kicked out. He was Watergated out because he had signed some 9/11 thing. He's not interested in 9/11. And indeed, the top honchos of the one in Washington coming up later this week are David Swanson and Kevin Zeese. These are both sworn enemies of 9/11 Truth. I mention this because it shows you what these people were doing during the course of the last decade. They were mainly fighting to keep 9/11 Truth separate from the peace movement, because that's when it could have reached critical mass.
Yeah, they were sabotaging key, true grassroots movements that could defeat this Wall Street agenda.
Exactly. So now they're doing this in a different form. Now, this one, the Washington one, is more sophisticated because they do have some demands. If you go to the Van Jones website, Rebuild America, there's a 10-point list, and they have the Wall Street sales tax. Although they have it so small you need a microscope to see it. 1/20th of 1% is what they say, and I don't think they're really.
But we don't want a Wall Street tax. We want a speculator and finance oligarch tax.
But that's it, the Wall Street sales tax. And again, if you're concerned, if you trade for your own account, how about a?
And by the way, it's Wall Street trying to promote VAT and sales taxes on us to pay them largesse in bailouts. No, you will pay the tax, you little bastards.
Yeah, in other words, you don't want regressive taxation. You don't want taxation that falls more on people with less money. You want progressive taxation. But again, the people at the very top are so few. The Wall Street sales tax, the Tobin tax, is I believe, the way out of this. All right, so you look at this group in Washington. You know, they've got a board. They've got Gore Vidal on the board. They've got in other words, the whole group of tired left liberal word mongers, mushheads, the people who brought you Obama without ever telling, without apologizing to the American people after they gave them Obama. They inflicted Obama. What they did in the Democratic primary in 2008 gave us Obama. Now, of course, they're not happy with Obama, but there's no mention of Obama on these websites.
Exactly.
Right?
Let's go back here. Let's go back, though. We've got Obama money, Obama backers, though. So clearly they're throwing him under the bus. They're acting like revolutionaries again. They don't want Obama to be brought up. But as you said in the Obama Deception, now out for 3 years, 30-something million views on YouTube. By the way, YouTube is trying to shut that down right now. We're under a real purge. We know they're deep in bed with these guys. And then the little YouTube, Google people all go to Bilderberg. Webster, what I'm getting at here is that we have seen this huge Occupy Wall Street push, and we see the establishment trying to basically